Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Doing well.
Good.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. Get my little, I've got a sticky note on my column that I'm going to be reading, and it's sticking here. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. All right. Here we go. Oh, Adam's here. Good morning, Adam.
Morning.
Here we go. Yeah, couldn't, while, mean, home, few, saw, place, school, help, wait, late, year, can't, house, happen, last, always, move, old, night, nod, life, give, sit, stare, sat, should, moment, another, behind, side, sound, once, find, toward, boy, ever, nothing, front, mother, name, am, since, reply, he's, myself, leave, bed, new, car, use, mind, maybe, has, heard, answer, minute, yes, until. All right. Let's do some common phrases. Here we go. And they pick these up off of storybooks. Okay, here we go. Stay a while, my own father. You might be right. Read every story. Next time, will it last? For example, light the fire. A group of friends under the earth. Both children. The big city. Read the paper. A good thought. Is it really true? Until the end, near the sea. Read your book. The long list. I miss you. Above the clouds. I took the car without a care. My feet hurt next to me. It began to grow. A group of Indians. Too soon. An important idea. Almost enough. Now, these are just going to be common phrases. Where he shall, where I shall, where you shall, whether he shall, whether I shall, whether or not he shall, whether or not I shall, how shall, it shall, she shall understand, shall remember, shall recollect, so I shall, so you shall, that I shall, that he shall, that you shall, there shall, they shall, this shall, we shall, what he shall, what I shall, what you shall, what shall, when he shall, when I shall, when you shall, she felt, she feels, she ever, she could, she cannot, she can, she believes, she believed. She been, you shall, who shall, which you shall, which I shall. All right, let's do some names and addresses. Here we go. Celeste S. Easterwood, EASTERWOOD, Route 2, Box 116, Jacksboro, Texas, 76056. Karen W. Pasecki, PIASECKI, 2123 Gallagher Avenue, Scotch Plains, New Jersey, 07076. Kathy C. Trimmer, TRIMMER, 1011 West Chestnut Road, Savannah, Missouri, 64545. Ms. Liz A. Miranda, Miranda, Housing Authority of Santa Clara, 990 West Taylor Street, San Jose, California, 95026. Ms. Sue C. Wood, WOOD, 402 Kerwood Castle, Oswego, Michigan, 48867. Ms. Teresa Monroe, MONROE, 1217 Huntington Drive, Flowers, South Dakota, 57201. Barbara M. Campbell, CAMPBELL, OPS, Largo High School, 410 Missouri Avenue, Largo, Florida, 33540. Mrs. Trudy N. Gardner, GARDNER, Babbitt and Wilcox, 4282 Northwest Strausser Street, P.O. Box 2423, North Canton, Ohio, 44720. Susan L. Inglesky, INGLESKI, 5040 Northeast South, 5040 Northeast 7th Avenue, Pompano Beach, Florida, 33064. All right. I've got some states for you. Here we go. I'm going to run through them at a fast pace. Here we go. Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Hawaii, Idaho, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, Nevada, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, North Carolina, North Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Vermont, Virginia, Washington, West Virginia, Wisconsin, Wyoming, and then United States. All right, now here are some words that are contractions, and then I'm going to give you some sentences that have the NT contractions. Okay, here we go. These are just mixed up all contractions though, okay? Here we go. He's, she's, whose, it's, that's, here's, theirs, where's, what's, let's, their, we're, your, I'd, you'd, he'd, she'd, we'd, they'd, I've, you've, we've, who've, they've, I'll, you'll, he'll, she'll, we'll, they'll, who'll, it'll, there, they've, they'll, aren't, doesn't, haven't, shouldn't, can't, couldn't, don't, wasn't, didn't, hadn't, isn't, weren't, hasn't, wouldn't, won't. Okay, here are your sentences. These focus on final NT. We haven't got it. He doesn't expect to win. We aren't in agreement. It isn't good to postpone it. He didn't learn to operate it. He won't testify. Ted hadn't bought the lot. I shouldn't forget the date. You can't miss the sign. He didn't buy the book. I don't like to watch that. Doesn't the car run well? I won't agree with you. We aren't ready to comply. It isn't related to your work. We couldn't see a movie. Anne hasn't read the letter. Bob wouldn't believe her. I didn't see it happen. Wasn't there a copy for you? Didn't we pay that bill? Hasn't the witness arrived? He can't seem to fix it. Mary can't help you. I didn't see it happen. Bill hadn't sneaked out. We don't risk much on it. The car hasn't been fixed. Don't forget the alternatives. The doctors weren't with her. They aren't here yet. Don't mention it. She wasn't in the house. Dogs won't be allowed in. The order isn't accurate. It doesn't make a difference. He didn't want to exercise. Won't you read the sign? Frank can't admit to it. The men wouldn't quit. Steve can't see the point. The owner wouldn't agree. He won't take the bus. It wasn't anything to speak of. Didn't the women own stock? The court isn't open today. All right. Here are some sentences using initials. Here we go. Ready? They were defended by attorneys from the ACLU. The coin dated from 37 BC. Ship the merchandise COD. Flight 750 shows an ETA of 7:45 p.m. The doctor ordered an EKG because of his chest pain. The news came from the AP wire. The man was pronounced DOA at Mercy Hospital. He was arrested by the MPs. All surplus property must be cleared through the GSA. They caught the thief by his MO. Send the mail for the soldier to APO San Francisco. He received his BA from USC. He took a room at the YMCA. Her German Shepherd is registered with the AKA. Let me say that again. Her German Shepherd is registered with the AKC. They were arriving on the HMS King George. His prints were sent to CID. The CPA prepared the tax return for the company. The show is on a UHF channel. Roger slipped into the bar with a false ID. The ABC revoked his liquor license. The workers were shipped and protected by an AFL-CIO contract. Jane is being audited by the IRS. Peter served for 20 years with the LAPD. The EEG unit requires 220 volts. The GMP is up this month. You can get a booklet from the GPO. DMT is a hallucinogen similar to LSD. The AMA does not approve of the advertising. He bought a GMC car. It is an old 45 RPM record. The use of DDT was prohibited. The CAA looked into the midair collision. The washer was shipped, FOB Milwaukee. The attorney belongs to the ABA. The long distance call was placed through AT&T. He was an agent for the CIA. All right. Now I've got some accident words, and some of these are brief, so you can brief what you want. If there's anything you want to know about, let me know. Okay, some of them, I know you probably already know them. I don't brief a lot of these because they don't always come up and it gets too confusing, but there's still good practice, especially because they do come up in car accident transcripts. Okay, here we go. Accident, accident happened, accident happened, accident occurred, after the accident, after the auto accident, after the automobile accident, before the accident, day of the accident, following the accident, night of the accident, on the afternoon of the accident, on the day of the accident, on the evening of the accident, on the morning of the accident, on the night of the accident, prior to the accident, scene of the accident, since that accident, since the accident, since this accident, time of the accident, that accident, the accident, this accident. Directing your attention, excuse me, more or less, more than, refresh your memory, refresh my memory, took place, northbound, southbound, westbound, eastbound, bedroom, living room, dining room, bathroom, policeman, policemen, police station, police department, police car. All right. We're going to do one more drill, and then we'll move on to literary and jury charge. Okay. All right. These are going to be consonant compounds in sentences. Blair was black and blue. The blood was on the blouse. The blockade stopped the blitz. Craig's blindfold was found on the blanket. The blonde was blissful. His blubber made him bloated. Waffles and truffles were served. A rifle was found in the duffel bag. Did you baffle Ray? They left the raft when it went soft. The lift went to the loft. The cats are the pets of Mrs. Potts. We lost the mitts and the bats. Rod sits and waits patiently when he bets. The riots of last year were in Watts. Please total your debts and assets so that we know the profits. The tots slept on the cots and the mats. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start at 120, but I will make my way up to I'll work my way up to 160, okay? All right, here we go. And this is an attorney speaking, but it's talking about a particular case. So it's more like literary because he's explaining what happened and talking about the evidence. So I don't really consider this jury charge. So it's more like literary, okay? All right, here we go. You are going to hear that at 11:43 in the morning, so sometime just before noon, Sabrina Helm makes that call, and that is recorded to Brian Stowe, and Karen Watts' answering machine came on saying, I can come out. I will be out there sometime after 2:00 today. You are going to hear about the 2 stops she made before Stan Adams and Brian Stowe's residence. That is, she stops at the Rick Sands residence at about 1:30 in the afternoon. And then sometime between 2 and 2:30, she stops at a woman by the name of Joanne Zip. Sabrina makes the similar kind of stops. She stops, she takes pictures of the cars, she gives them an Auto Trader magazine, a bill of sale. She completes the transaction before taking the photo for Auto Trader, and then she goes on to her next stop for that day. Well, her next stop that day was at the Stan Adams salvage property. You are going to hear at 2:27 p.m. a woman from Auto Trader, Dana Pliska, talks to Sabrina Helm. You are going to hear that during that conversation, Ms. Helm says, I am on my way. I am on my way to the Daniel Mack property. So when we talk about a timeline, when was she there? About when does she get there? You are going to hear that the zip residence is less than 10 minutes from the Mack property. And if at 2:27 she says, I am on my way, it can no longer be or later than 3:27 or about 3:40. Excuse me, 2:27 or about 2:40 in the afternoon, or 20 minutes to 3, that Sabrina Helm gets to Stan Adams' property where the photos are supposed to be taken. You will hear the evidence that she completes the actual transaction. She takes the photos of the van just like she has been asked to do. You will then hear in, unfortunately, graphic detail what then happens to Sabrina Helm after 2:40 in the afternoon. Let's go back to the investigation for just a minute, though. Sabrina doesn't show up for work on the 1st or the 2nd of November. On the 3rd, the Helm family and friends become understandably concerned, and they begin to retrace Sabrina's steps. Where is Sabrina? They are asking how they can find her. On the 4th, both the citizen efforts and the law enforcement efforts to find Sabrina are kind of ramped up. They do some aerial searches. They look at financial transactions. They check out her cell phone records, which towers that her cell phone kind of pings off or bounces off of a close tower. And also, you will hear about the distribution of missing person posters at that time given out by the citizens. You will hear that on the morning of the 5th, her vehicle is found at 10:30 in the morning by the Tabors. At about 2 o'clock, all of the investigators become actively involved in the searching, or at least in obtaining search warrants, as well as searching the property. And you will then hear about these searches continuing. Then, very quickly on Sunday, the firearms and garage is searched, and you will hear about the evidence that is obtained at that location. On the 7th, it becomes more full scale. There are lots and lots. In fact, hundreds of law enforcement officers and volunteers and citizens that become involved in the search of this massive 40-acre property. At that time, all the junked vehicles are then searched, and then you will hear about the discovery of the burn barrel. On the 8th, those 3 critical discoveries that we talked about, that is the Toyota key being found in Brian Stowe's bedroom, the SUV plates are found at that time, and the burn area is discovered, which, contains those human remains. The 9th becomes a very important day as well. This is the day that Brian Stowe is arrested. Brian Stowe is arrested for a weapons charge. On the 9th, he is then interviewed. But what you will also hear about the Brian Stowe contact on the 9th is that the officers take some photographs. They do a physical examination of Brian Stowe, and they find a cut on him that you will see in just a few minutes. On the 10th, the burn area is further examined. On the key itself, on the key that was found in Brian's bedroom, they find his DNA. We will talk about that in a little bit further. On the 11th, the victim's blood, that is the female blood from within the SUV. Remember the big pool or the big stains in the cargo area in Sabrina's SUV, well, those now match a soda can that Sabrina had up in the front of the vehicle. It's then presumed to be that of Sabrina Helms. So those are the first 8 days or so of the investigation and what you need to know. Again, that's probably, 2.5 or 3 weeks, or could be, of testimony that, in this case, we are going to try to fit into a layer of evidence. Try to fit into about 2 days or maybe 2.5 days. So it is going to go quickly, but it is meant to give you a flavor of the size of this case, the scope of this case, and also to the credit not only of the Helm family and to the memory of Sabrina, but you need to hear it. You need to hear the whole story of the investigation. We talked about those DNA matches that Ms. Calhoun developed at the crime lab. You're going to hear that Sabrina's blood is later positively identified to a standard area in the cargo area of her car. All right. I worked my way up to 160 there. Okay. All right. Now, I've got some legal opinion. I'm going to start right at 160 with this one, okay? All right. Here we go. The subject of deliberate murder and premeditated murder is interwoven into one issue. We define only murder which is perpetrated by a willful killing, a deliberate killing, or a premeditated killing, when express malice aforethought is present as a murder of the first degree. The word willful means intentional. Willful is something that is said or done deliberately. A synonym for willful is voluntary. The word deliberate means formed or determined or arrived at based upon a careful process of thinking and weighing any and all considerations for and against the proposed course of action. The word premeditated means to consider beforehand any plan which is thought out, schemed, or planned before an act is premeditated. When you find that a killing was preceded and accompanied by an obvious and deliberate intent on the part of the defendant to kill, which is the result of careful deliberation and premeditation, so that the act must have been performed based upon pre-existing reflections and not governed by a sudden heat of passion or other condition precluding the idea of deliberation, it is murder of the first degree. The law cannot undertake the responsibility of measuring in seconds, minutes, hours, or days the length of the period of time during which a thought must be weighed and pondered before it can mature into an actual intent to kill, which is truly deliberate and premeditated. The time will vary with different individuals and under varying circumstances. The true test is based not on the duration of time, but rather on the extent of the contemplation. A cold and calculated decision may be arrived at in a rather short period of time, but a rash and impulsive act, even though it includes the intent to kill, does not require such deliberation and premeditation as defined by law as an unlawful killing in murder of the first degree. Any opinion is subject to interpretation and consideration because all situations will vary according to the surrounding circumstances. In order to constitute a deliberate, premeditated killing, the question of killing must be weighed and considered, and the reasons for and against such a choice must be weighed. With this in mind, and knowing the consequences, My opinion is that a deliberate, premeditated killing is perpetrated when a person decides to and does kill. All right. Go ahead and move on to Q&A. Start with an easier transcript. All right, this is the dog bite transcript. We'll start with this one since it's a little bit easier. It's a good one for warm up. This is going to be defense. I'll start at 120. I'll work my way to 160. When was that? When I was still in the cast. What were those dreams and nightmares like? Bad? How long were you in the cast? For about 2 weeks. Can you tell me those dreams? No. Did the dreams go away after you were out of the cast? Yeah. Did the dreams go away after you started playing baseball? Yes. Did they ever come back? They used to, but not no more. What do you mean by that? Like a couple days, like when I wouldn't have them for a couple days, and then they would come back for a couple days, and then I wouldn't have them for a couple days. About when is the last time you had a dream about this? About last year. 2007? Yes. Do you know when last year, before or after you moved to Texas? Before. So you quit having dreams before you moved to Texas? Yeah. Can you tell me anything about the dreams? No. Did you dream you getting bit, or did you dream something else? I dreamed me getting bit. Do you have any relatives who live near you in Texas? Yeah. What relatives? My stepdad's parents, my stepdad's mom and grandma. Have you made friends in Texas? Yeah. Good friends? Yeah. Who is your best friend in Texas? His name is Josh. Josh? Yeah. Okay, and that's a boy. A boy. What is Josh's last name? Brick. Did you play baseball in Texas? No. All right, how are you doing in school? Do you like the school in Texas? Just a little. Which school did you like better? The one in California or the one in Texas? The one in California. Why is that? I don't know. Are you a good student? Yeah. You get lots of A's and B's? No. What kind of grades do you get? I don't know. Do you have any other family in Texas besides your stepfather's mother and grandmother and your stepdad and your mom and your 2 brothers? Yeah. What other family do you have in Texas? Cousins? What cousins? Are they your stepdad's cousins or your mom's or your dad's? I don't know. So there's some cousins there too? Yeah. Before this dog bite thing happened, had anyone ever warned you about the light brown dog with the dark brown spots? No. Before the dog bite thing happened, had anyone ever warned you about the other dog? No. After the dog finally let go of your leg, what did you do? I ran into the house. What did you do once you got to the house? I jumped on the floor. Was that in the kitchen? No, in the family room. Then what did you do? I just laid there, and then this guy across the street came over and he tied a towel around my leg. Where was your mom? In the kitchen, and her and my sister were screaming really loud, and they were dialing 911. When you dropped to the floor, could you feel your leg? Kind of. What did your leg feel like? It kind of felt like nothing was there and the skin was hanging down. When you started playing baseball again, could you slide into base? No. Could you jump for a ball or dive for a ball? Not really. So you dropped on the floor and a man came and put a towel on your leg? Yeah. Do you know who that man was? No. Can you tell me what he looked like? Uh-uh. What's your sister's name? Jody. Is she older or younger? Older. How old is Jody? 14. She's 14 now? Yeah. Did the man say anything when he put the towel on your leg? He just told me to lie down and the ambulance was going to come. Okay, was your leg bleeding? Real bad. Had you ever seen that man before? Yeah. Do you know where he lives? Across? Not? No. I don't know where he lives now. He used to live across the street. Who did he live with? My mom. Say that again. What? The man who put the towel on your leg. He used to live across the street? Yeah. Do you know who he lived with? No. Do you know what his last name was? No. Do you remember the man saying anything to you? He just told me to lay down on the ground and that the ambulance would come. And he just put the towel on your leg, right? Yes. I can't really remember. Did he stay there until the ambulance came? Yeah. Did an ambulance take you someplace? Yeah. Where did the ambulance take you? To a hospital. Do you remember the man saying anything to you while you were waiting for the ambulance? He just said, for me, it would be okay. Can you tell me anything about the man? Was he short, tall, skinny, chubby? Tall. Was he Hispanic or black or white or? He was Mexican. When the ambulance people got there, what did they do? They ran into the house and then they put me on this thing and they rolled me out there to the ambulance truck. Did they put any bandages on your leg or anything like that? No, they just put you on the little bed and rolled you out to the ambulance truck. Yeah. Did they do any first aid for you? No, not until we got to the hospital. Did they leave the towel on your leg? Yes. Did one of the ambulance people kind of hold the towel on? Yes. Did they do anything for you there in the ambulance? Not really. And they just drove you to the hospital? Yes. Okay, when you got to the hospital, what happened? They put me on a bed, then I waited for about 5 minutes, and then the doctor came, and then they started cleaning it and putting the stitches in. So a doctor put stitches in it? Yeah, and staples. Did that hurt? Yes, really bad. Before the guy put the stitches in, did someone come and wash off your leg? Yes, that's the part that hurt. Okay, did a nurse come by and help wash off your leg? Yes, a nurse too. Okay, and after the man put the stitches in your leg, the doctor, what happened? Then they had to put a cast on it, and then I left. When you left, who did you go home with? My mom. Where were your brothers? Next door at the neighbor's house. What was the name of the neighbor? Glenna. Where was your sister? Next door. Did your mom ride in the ambulance with you? No, she drove her car. And she met you there at the hospital? Yeah. How long were you in the hospital? For a couple of hours. Did they give you a shot while you were at the hospital? Yes, they gave me 3 of them to numb it and 1 for the dog bite. And then you came home? Yes. Did you have to go back to the hospital? Yeah, in about a month after. Why did you go back to the hospital? Because they had to check on it. When you went back to the hospital and they checked on it, what happened? They just had to put new bandages on it. Did you go to the hospital and spend the night there? Yeah. Okay, when was that? July 1st. Okay, let's back up just 1 second. July 1st is when the dog bite happened, right? Uh-huh. Is that a yes? Yes. And the ambulance took you to the hospital. Is that correct? Yes. Then they worked on you. Then did you go home? Yeah. All right, so let's switch transcripts. Poor kid. All right. This is a child custody case. We've been working on this one, and it's a court case as well. So this will be good for voice. I worked my way up to 160. With this one, I'll start at 140, and then I'll work my way back up to 160 again, okay? Since we already worked our way up to 160, I don't want to start all the way at the bottom again. Okay, all right, looks like plaintiff is questioning. Here we go. What was your reason? Well, in the beginning, we had a neighbor watching her, and both of us had equal access. When that neighbor actually moved in February, approximately of 2011, I did have I think there were 3 other sitters that were watching her. She was not concerned with the first sitter that was watching her, but this last one where I refused was because the woman did not want any contact with Cindy. And then in August, when we were here and the matter was mediated and an agreement was made, part of that agreement said that she could pick up the child from the babysitter. Is that correct? Yes, at the mediation, I informed Cindy and I informed the mediator that my babysitter had said, in fact, that if she has any contact, she was applying for different care. She wanted foster care and didn't want any trouble with. I object, it's hearsay. I'll sustain it. 352. Let's move on to another topic. Okay, I don't believe I have any further questions on this issue. Your Honor, we're sort of getting the income information on the arguments as far as the attorney fees later, but I don't think I need to elicit any testimony from Mr. Netter on that. Okay, cross-examination. Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I'm looking at your pay stub dated July 5th, 2011, and the pay stub dated 6/7 of 11. Was there anything unusual that occurred during that period of time, if you recall, regarding bonuses or pay or anything else? I don't have a copy in front of me. This was Exhibit 12. May I approach the witness, Your Honor? Yes, you may. And you're saying as to all of them or just these 2? Just the 2 between the month of July and, well, that is, as I testified earlier, the first time that they allowed the overtime on a project was approximately June of that year. So there's a disparity in the income statement. I probably had an overtime project that I did. In fact, work over the weekend or something to that effect. I don't recall the exact circumstances. Now, in fact, when they pay you overtime, they note it on your pay stub, don't they, Mr. Netter? Yes, they do. And in fact, these pay stubs don't say overtime, do they? Those two particular ones? That's correct. I'm sorry, I didn't. May I approach again, Your Honor? Yes. No, these two don't indicate any overtime. On these two, they're not consecutive. They're a month apart. Mr. Netter, in July, year to date, your earnings were $84,025.50, while in June, the same date, actually less than 30 days before that time, the earnings were $79,819.72. Now I calculate that the earning period in that 30 days to be, well, can you explain to me how you calculate from 3,200 from what we can see here in a 30-day period as being $4,205? Well, I'm just assuming that was overtime for that period. And yet it doesn't say that on these pay stubs, does it? I don't get your point. In fact, you didn't work any overtime during that pay period, because if you had worked overtime, it would have shown on your pay stubs. Is that correct? There are missing pay stubs there. There are two pay stubs a month apart. Okay, so you're saying that there's some intervening weeks? There may be 3 intervening weeks there. Did you provide those pay stubs for the court? I don't recall. What time did you leave for work in the morning, Mr. Netter? It varies anywhere from, if I have a departmental meeting, I have to be there at 8 o'clock. So I would leave at approximately 6 or 6:15. My normal hours are 9:30 to 5:30. So I normally leave anywhere from approximately, by the time I drop Katie off, I leave the house at about 7, drop her off about 7:15-ish. I'm usually on the road at about 7:30. And what time do you typically arrive home in the evenings? Well, that varies also depending on what transpires during the day and if I have to stay a little late. My normal hours are again until 5:30. I can leave anywhere from 5 o'clock to sometimes I can work through the night, depending on what the circumstances are. How often do you work through the night, Mr. Netter? Over I'd say the last 6 months, there have probably been maybe, well, I'm not saying over. If I say overnight, I mean typically I can work until 11 or 12, and sometimes I work until 2 in the morning. Sometimes I work only until 9. So actually overnight, I've only maybe worked like maybe once or twice over the last year. But I have worked late where I've contacted my sitter and asked her to keep her overnight approximately 5 times. And how often do you get home after 6 o'clock in the evening in a typical week? After 6 o'clock in a typical, well, I take it on a longer standpoint. I'm normally always, you never say always, never say never type of idea, but I would say that my normal time is after 6 o'clock. And there would be a few days that I'd leave work early and pick Katie up early, or tell the sitter, don't pick her up and I'll get her. But typically it's after 6 o'clock. What's the latest hour that you, on a fairly typical basis, pick her up? Is that before 8 or after 8? Oh, it's almost never after 8 o'clock. I have always had her well before that. Usually between, even if I'm late, it's between, 7, 7:30. Have you made any efforts, Mr. Netter, to try to look for employment in the Riverside area so that you can be closer to your daughter? There are no major, with the exception of one, I'm in a bankruptcy department now, and there is no major bankruptcy firm that I could transfer to. The question is, have you looked for any employment here in the Riverside area so that you could be closer to your daughter? As a matter of fact, when I first moved here to Riverside County, yes, I did. But over the last year and a half, 2 years, no, I have not. When did you first move to Riverside County? It was in August or September of '98 when we first purchased our house. So you haven't looked for work in 3 years? Well, like I said, when we first came here to, did I say '98? I'm sorry, I meant 2008. When we moved to Moreno Valley, yes, I did. But over the last year, year and a half, no, I have not. Have you made any effort, Mr. Netter, to try to take some of this work home so that you can spend a little more time with your daughter? Your Honor, objection. Sustained, irrelevant. Okay, this isn't an issue of custody or visitation. It is a, no, I know, Your Honor, this is an issue of the amount of child care expenses that Mr. Netter is incurring. We believe that it's an unreasonable amount, and we believe that he's entitled to the child care expenses, but only those that are reasonably necessary for his employment. And well, if someone is a paralegal working in a large law firm in Los Angeles, residing in Riverside County, and they have to leave home at 7 and get home at 7 to 8 o'clock to pick up their child, I find that personally very burdensome. I doubt if he's going to be doing that because he wants to. He's doing that, from what I hear, because he wants to maintain an 8-hour-a-day job with a major law firm in Los Angeles. Now, is that unreasonable from your perspective? Obviously, it is. From my perspective, trying to be neutral and impartial, by no stretch is it unreasonable. Now you may proceed with another line of questioning. Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Netter, why haven't you taken the bar exam in the last 5 years? Well, there have been, as you must know, there has been an array of why not. 1, it's time that you have to take off to study. 2, there's economic reasons. 3, certainly we were married. I entered a different line of work. I wasn't always just a law clerk or a paralegal. I actually was an administrator of a law firm. There was job changes. I mean, economics. I mean, there's a million reasons why you can find not to do something. Is it your intent to take the bar exam in the near future? No, it is not. Why is that? To take the time off, I would need at least 2 months. I've been out of it well over 5 years. They've actually added a course on the bar now to make it 14. I only deal in bankruptcy, and that's not even tested on the bar. It would take a long time and a lot of money to get back in the bar review courses and to gather enough time to take 2 months off to get the money together, and it just doesn't seem to be in the near future. Okay, would you like to be a lawyer? I'd love to be a lawyer. I thought you would say that. I won't comment on the judgment then for that kind of a decision. I'm sure that if he could be a lawyer, he'd be a lawyer. I have no further questions on child support of this witness. Any examination further? No, Your Honor. Thank you, Mr. Netter. You may step down. Any further evidence on the support issue? I have one, Your Honor. Further evidence on the support issue, Ms. Hendrickson? No, Your Honor. We rest on that issue. All right, what's the next issue you want to litigate? I've got the jacuzzi on there. All right, Ms. Hendrickson, you want to be heard on that? You want to call witnesses on that issue? I believe it would be the plaintiff's burden on that. Well, Your Honor, well, that was property acquired during the marriage, was it not? Yes, it is. It was acquired during the marriage. That's correct, Your Honor. Okay, and if it was acquired during the marriage, I believe there is a presumption, is there not? Yes, there is. That's correct. What is that presumption? We'll go ahead and call the witness, Your Honor. Let's call Cindy Netter. Mrs. Netter, would you please come forward? You are still under oath. All right, we'll stop there and do a read back section. All right. Let's see here. Okay. This is going to be defense questioning. And I'll read this first time at 160, and then I'll go down to 140, and then at 120, okay? All right, here we go. At the time you were hired, were there other salesmen in the sales department? No. At the time you were hired, Mr. Hooker was the president, was he not? That is correct. And Mr. Nicholas was the vice president. Is that correct? That was not the proper title. What was his title? He was selling trailers off the existent house trailer lot. Did he have a title? I don't think so. Now, at the time you were hired, the business of Manhattan Rentals Corporation was the leasing or selling of office and specialty trailers, was it not? Yes. And you were hired as a salesman, is that correct? That is correct. Was it your main function to build the business? Yes, it was to learn the business and build it. Now, approximately 6 to 9 months after you were hired, you were put in charge of all sales except for several house accounts. Is that not correct? I believe it was earlier than that. It was before 6 or 9 months. I believe so. Approximately how long after you were hired was it? I would say 4 or 5 months. And you were put in charge of all sales except for several house accounts? That is correct. And this was at your insistence, was it not? That is correct. And isn't it true that during that 4 or 5 months you were working under the guidance of Mr. Hooker and Mr. Nicholas? Well, Mr. Nicholas gave me more help than Mr. Hooker did. Okay, so let's do that again at 140. Here we go. At the time you were hired, were there other salesmen in the sales department? No. At the time you were hired, Mr. Hooker was the president, was he not? That is correct. And Mr. Nicholas was the vice president. Is that correct? That was not the proper title. What was his title? He was selling trailers off the existent house trailer lot. Did he have a title? I don't think so. Now, at the time you were hired, the business of Manhattan Rentals Corporation was the leasing or selling of office and specialty trailers. Was it not? Yes. And you were hired as a salesman, is that correct? That is correct. Was it your main function to build the business? Yes, it was to learn the business and build it. Now, approximately 6 to 9 months after you were hired, you were put in charge of all sales except for several house accounts. Is that not correct? I believe it was earlier than that. It was before 6 or 9 months. I believe so. Approximately how long after you were hired was it? I would say 4 or 5 months. And you were put in charge of all sales except for several house accounts. That is correct. And this was at your insistence, was it not? That is correct. And isn't it true that during that 4 or 5 months you were working under the guidance of Mr. Hooker and Mr. Nicholas? Well, Mr. Nicholas gave me more help than Mr. Hooker did. Okay, last time at 120. Here we go. At the time you were hired, were there other salesmen in the sales department? No. At the time you were hired, Mr. Hooker was the president, was he not? That is correct. And Mr. Nicholas was the vice president, is that correct? That was not the proper title. What was his title? He was selling trailers off the existent house trailer lot. Did he have a title? I don't think so. Now, at the time you were hired, the business of Manhattan Rentals Corporation was the leasing or selling of office and specialty trailers, was it not? Yes. And you were hired as a salesman, is that correct? That is correct. Was it your main function to build the business? Yes, it was to learn the business and build it. Now, approximately 6 to 9 months after you were hired, you were put in charge of all sales except for several house accounts. Is that not correct? I believe it was earlier than that. It was before 6 or 9 months? I believe so. Approximately how long after you were hired was it? I would say 4 or 5 months. And you were put in charge of all sales except for several house accounts? That is correct. And this was at your insistence, was it not? That is correct. And isn't it true that during that 4 or 5 months, you were working under the guidance of Mr. Hooker and Mr. Nicholas? Well, Mr. Nicholas gave me more help than Mr. Hooker did. All right, how was that?
Pretty good.
Good. Very good. Okay, well, you guys find your spot. Let me know when you find it. And again, I never want to put anybody on the spot. So if you ever feel like, oh, I don't want to read back today, just tell me and I'll skip you, okay? And you could still follow along, but you don't necessarily have to read back. Okay. So just let me know, and I'll take the first one.
Dang it.
Found it?
Oh, I can't remember how to spell Nicholas. It just looks wrong everywhere I try it. Is it Nickolas?
It's Nicholas.
Well, that's why.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought that was funny that this guy's last name is Hooker. I don't know why. It just sounds funny. I've never. Well, I guess people have just odd. I have a friend. Her last name is Snodgrass, and I always think that sounds so funny. You know.
She doesn't live out here, does she?
No.
Oh, because I know someone with that last name too.
Really? Yeah, she actually lives here in California.
Oh, that's funny.
I don't know why. It just sounds so funny to me. Snodgrass. Snodgrass. Yeah. And I have another friend. Her first name is Honey. Guess what her last name is? Graham.
Graham.
Honey Graham. That's funny.
Isn't that cute? Oh, she's married now, so it's not her, obviously it's not her married name, but in high school, you know, we were friends all through high school, and her first name was Honey. I always thought that was funny. And her last name's Graham. All right. You guys ready?
Yeah.
So I'll take the first one. Question. At the time you were hired, were there other salesmen in the sales department? Answer, no.
Question. At the time you were hired, Mr. Hooker was the president, was he not? Answer, that is correct.
Perfect.
Question. And Mr. Nicholas was the vice president, semicolon. Is that correct? Answer, that was not the proper title.
Awesome. Question. What was his title? I almost forgot I'm reading back. Answer. He was selling trailers off the existent house trailer lot.
Question. Did he have a title? Answer, I don't think so.
Question. Now at the time you were hired, comma, let's see. Was the leasing, let's see. I have the was, of course. It's terrible.
That's okay. Do you have the business? Because you said now at the time you were hired, comma, and then do you have the business of?
Oh, it's the, no, I must have missing something.
That's
I have
okay.
was the leasing and selling.
Okay, no worries.
of
So you're just missing the
offices.
business of Manhattan Rentals Corporation.
Really?
Yes.
Dang. I know I got it on there. Wow. Okay. Apparently
okay.
I lost it on this one.
That's all right. No worries. So the business of Manhattan Rentals Corporation, and then what you said was the
Was the leasing and selling of office and specialty trailers. Was it not? Answer, yes.
awesome. Question. And you were hired as a salesman. Is that correct? Answer, that is correct.
Question. Was it your main function to build the business? Answer, yes, it was to learn the business and build it.
Awesome.
Question. Now approximately 6 to 9 months after you were hired, comma, you were put in charge of all sales except for several house accounts, semicolon. Is that not correct? Answer, I believe it was earlier than that.
Awesome. Question. It was before 6 or 9 months. Answer, I believe so.
Question. Approximately how long after you were hired was it? Answer, I would say 4 or 5 months.
Awesome.
Question. And you were put in charge of all sales except for several house accounts. Answer, that is correct.
Question. And this was at your insistence, was it not? Answer, that is correct.
Question. And isn't it true that during that 4 or 5 months you were working under the guidance of Mr. Hooker and Mr. Nicholas? Answer, well, Mr. Nicholas gave me more help than Mr. Hooker did.
Awesome. Great job, you guys. Great job. Oh, before I forget, Adam, were you planning on coming to the class this evening?
No.
Okay, because it's going to be an hour earlier, so
Oh.
I just
Is it normally at 6?
It's normally from 5 to 6.
Oh, okay.
And we're going to do it from 4 to 5. And we actually talked about doing it like 3:45 to 4:45. I have a fun tax appointment this evening.
Always fun.
Yes. So anyway, so I wanted to make sure everybody knows. So we'll log on at 3:45.
I'll be there.
All right. Sounds good. Well, it's great having you guys. I love having students in live class. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Have a great day, you guys.
You
You
too.
too.
Okay, bye.
Bye.